Okay, hello everybody. This is a video about preparing the second movement of Mendelssohn's Third Symphony for the upcoming Duquesne Audition ensemble placement auditions. And for those of you who are not, don't recognize me, this is videos primarily for my students. My name is Jack Howell. I play bass clarinet in the Pittsburgh Symphony and teach clarinet at Duquesne University here in Pittsburgh. And if you've stumbled upon this looking for advice on this excerpt, maybe you'll find it useful. So the first thing is a word about the speed of this excerpt. It is marked quarter note equals 126. In performance, most orchestras play it at least that fast, usually faster than that. For purposes of preparation and this audition, don't worry about that. If you look at it and you set your metronome at 126 and start practicing, if you don't already have the fundamental technique and articulation speed, you'll wind up ingraining a lot of mistakes and a lot of sloppiness. So don't be panicked by the tempo. Do not play any faster than you can play cleanly in perfect rhythm with beautiful articulation. If you reward yourself for beauty and correct fundamentals and musical integrity, the speed will come. But if you abandon those things and focus only on speed, you'll have a fast mess, and there's not a lot of market for that. So the first thing we want to focus on is the rhythm. As we do always, we always focus on rhythm first. That is the bottom layer of our musical hierarchy of needs. This movement, for much of the movement, with just a few exceptions, which maybe I'll point some of those out, the composite rhythm is a steady 16th note. So your dotted 8th, 16th figure has to fit exactly with those underlying straight 16ths. Furthermore, your rhythm needs to have a little bit of a bounce to it, and you need to take a little bit of the sound away from the long note so that the underlying 16ths have a chance to do their job. If you play dee da 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 da, then you're not giving you're not giving the second and third 16th notes under you a chance to help propel. So that's the first thing, is making sure that consistently throughout right, that you've got a dotted 8th, 16th figure. One of the things that I hear very frequently from young musicians, not just clarinetists in my studio, is the inability to feel where the rhythm goes and to start musically when you have a pickup. I will very frequently hear someone play and already they're late, or and then it's not clean, they're not set. So the first thing, and those of you who are in my studio will have heard this a whole bunch of times, organize your rhythm according to where it goes, not according to how long you wait. So in order to begin this excerpt musically, we have to hear the music that leads up to it. We have to breathe musically and then step on the moving walk musically, rather than suddenly trying to spring into action on the 16th note pickup. So we hear 3 pickups that are 16ths, 1 pickup to 2 bars that is tutti wins. We hear da-da, flute and oboe, da-da, bassoon, da-da, horn, quarter, half, breathe, da-da, right? So that when you play, you're joining music that's already in progress and not trying to start the piece yourself. So we hear ba-bum, 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 bum, right? So that's the first thing, is to make sure that you are breathing musically and starting in time rather than playing like a startle reflex to that 16th note, the 16th rest. The 16th note technique we should probably talk about just a little bit. We always talk about getting the right hand down. So we want to minimize the difficulty of yodeling back and forth across the break by getting the right hand down. So when you play the G, don't play the G like this and then try and get all your fingers down for the B. Play the G like this. That way you're already prepared for the B. Okay, so that helps you get across the break and helps you be smooth. If it's not smooth, make up a drill like this. You can be creative, but you get the idea. Work out something where you can really focus on the intervals and on the exact evenness of the 16ths without worrying too much about playing the entire excerpt. And as always, I'm a big believer in playing things twice as slow. So now, we talked about speed. For purposes of this video, I've set the metronome at quarter note equals 112, which is well under tempo, but if you play it cleanly and beautifully at that tempo for your placement audition, I guarantee you it will be impressive. So I've set the metronome at half tempo because, as I always preach, use the metronome to train your feel, not as a substitute for feel. So the pulse is ba-ba-ga-da-ga-da-ga-da-dum, ba-bum, 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 ba-be-dum, ba-ba-ga-da-ga-da-ga-da-dum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Furthermore, I think this phrase organizes very nicely into a question and answer or into a call and response. Ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-bum is the question. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-be-dum is the answer. And so I think it's makes things nicely vocal to think about it that way. So we're talking about half speed. And then twice as fast. Next, one of the things that I would like for you to use this excerpt to practice that we talk about all the time is Daniel Binaud's advanced finger staccato, whereby you use the time that your tongue is on the reed to initiate the articulation to immediately move your fingers to the next note. And there are lots of opportunities for this, and I'll point some of them out, but right off the bat, we have the second bar that we played. You'll notice that as I lift the dotted 8/16, that I immediately move my finger. That eliminates any sloppiness in that next picking up that next note. Okay, phrasing, we talked about the phrasing. So we play the same thing twice. I like to try the second time to bump it up just a little bit so that we're not playing the same phrase exactly the same way. But once we get through that section, okay, so then we have forte, and that should be, I didn't play enough dynamic contrast. That should be markedly louder than what you played before. But we need to talk about this bar, dee da da ba ba. if you look at the score, and everybody please go to IMSLP, pause the video, go to IMSLP, and get the score to this. So when we look at this, bar 22, 23, bar 24, bar 25, if you look at the score, you will notice that this constant 16th note, it ends. And there is nothing happening rhythmically except for this tutti figure, which is all the winds, maybe not bassoons, but it's high winds and strings. Ba ba da 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 da. Recognize what's happening here. Mendelssohn is making this constant this urgency, and all of a sudden it stops. Bum ba 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 bum. So it's kind of like like there's a jump. The music takes flight, the ground disappears, and then we have to land precisely 8/16 notes later. So that's why the common mistake of rushing those 2/8 notes, da 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 da, that's why it is so evident to the listener, and that's why it's so damaging, and why it gets so many people kicked out of auditions. So just listen for that, and then prepare for it by feeling the big pulse, not the little ones. All right, now past that, there's not a whole lot of difficulty in playing these long notes, so I'm not going to do it. Just be aware that the first time that you do it, it is a clarinet solo. The second time you do it, it's tutti winds. So that's why we've got the different treatment of the diminuendo and the crescendo and the sforzando and all of that stuff. That's why the second one goes to fortissimo and then sustains. So just pay attention to that, use your intelligence. And one other piece of advice about this. Even though it says fortissimo, I would rather listen as a person listening to an audition, I would much rather hear 5.5 bars of the most beautiful high D that's maybe not the loudest I've ever heard, than I would listen to the loudest high D but have it make my ears bleed. Okay, so remember, the dolce tone is your benchmark. Listen for beauty in sound. Don't allow it to, outgrow itself and become harsh and unpleasant. All right, so that takes us down to the next section. We play ba ba da ba da 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 bam. Oh, be aware that the first one is slurred da, the second one da da. DG is tongued. So then we have a 4-bar period where the flute, oboe, violins play a repeated figure, 1 bar of each, that goes up. So it's a rising sequence with 1 repetition per figure. And then the bassoons and the cello bass play another rising sequence, but that doesn't have the same repetition. Okay? So, but they're both rising sequences, and they both serve to propel the music to letter B, where we play ba-da-da-da-dee-da-da, which is carried on by the strings in the transition to the contrapuntal section. So everything that I said about the beginning and the pickup applies here. 1 da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Also organizing into phrases, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-bum, ba-ba-ga-da-ga-da-ga-da-dum, ba-bum, da-ya-da-da-da-da-da-da, more, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then the strings continue it. So this is another section that you will probably want to practice technically in a loop, and pay close attention to advanced finger staccato. And then continues, right? So underestimate how brilliant and helpful Bonnard's advanced finger staccato is. When you hear clarinetists playing with really great clarity, that's how they're doing it. They're not necessarily doing anything faster than anyone else. They're using the available time to really make it sparkle. So when you practice it slowly, stop the C sharp, immediately move your finger to the E, stop the E, immediately move your finger to the C sharp, and so forth. Right? So you see how even in the dotted rhythms, I'm using the silence to my advantage. I'm not just waiting for it to happen and then trying to move my fingers. Preparing. I'm not missing notes. Okay? So we got that rising sequence of that section. Then we come to the bit that is, frankly, it's kind of the hard part. This section it's the kind of counterpoint that makes a composer like Mendelssohn a composer like Mendelssohn. It's really beautiful, sparkling, surprising. You know, it's really fantastic counterpoint. We want to begin by organizing the rhythm of where it goes. When we come in bar 84, pick up to bar 85, we are continuing a staccato scale in the flute, yes, and we're also playing with da ba ya da 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 ya da da. So there's 2 eighth notes, and then there's a grace note on the second beat in the violins. And so we want to fit with that, and we fit with it not by responding with a startled reflex. We do it by gauging the pulse, feeling the pulse, joining the pulse. So da 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 ya ba da 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 dee ya da ba da 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 dum da dum da dum da dum da 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 dum 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 da dum. Right now, you see, as I sang it, and I don't try to sing pitches. You know, I'm a terrible singer, but you notice how little emphasis there was in that. We have an accent, we have a sforzando, and then we have just lovely phrases. So, as I say, in every lesson, emphasis and precision are entirely different things. Very simple, and if you play with the big pulse instead of trying to really feel the syncopations and count with your breath, then it'll be much more musical. So breathe. Sorry, lid dry. Okay. Concentrate on the phrase, and if you need to practice this slowly, make a loop. And I hope you can see how I'm concentrating on advanced finger staccato so that I'm never trying to catch my tongue with my fingers. So forth, okay? A lot of people stumble a little bit with bar 95. And part of it is, I think, in not feeling direction through that, and playing toward the downbeat. And part of it is just maybe trying to play it faster than you can tongue. Nobody's ever going to look at me as an example of blazing tongue speed. So I'm not going to try and impress you with how fast I can tongue it, nor should you try and impress your audition committee by tonguing it faster than you can. Okay? An old friend of mine in high school is a magician, and he taught me, never show an audience a trick you can't do. So in an audition, find a way that you can play it beautifully that plays to your strengths, rather than torpedoing yourself by setting up an impossible task. So through all of this, I would much rather hear than something where it's way too fast and really messed up. And then that takes us to the end of the excerpt. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Very gentle, but very precise. And record yourselves and listen and make sure that all of these 8th, 16th rest, 16th note figures, they're basically just dotted rhythms with a little more air. So right? So just make sure that you're supporting that underlying 16th, and I think that's it. I don't think there's any reason to prolong the video beyond that, other than to say if you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me, and practice well. Remember the advice of our friend Tomo Fujita, who said, don't worry, don't compare, be kind to yourself. All right? Have a great rest of the summer, and I'll see you guys in end of August.